Greetings, Legionnaires, and welcome. Today I'll be reviewing Captain Marvel. Is it worth seeing out in theaters, or is it better left off just streaming on Disney Plus eventually? Well, I'll tell you all that and more with a brief spoiler-free plot synopsis, some highlights, and some shortcomings. Captain Marvel tells the story of a Kree warrior named Vers. She has a convoluted background, but basically she goes around with her other Kree brothers and sisters, stamping out a group of individuals called the Skrulls, a green-colored alien race that can actually transform how they look into anyone that they see, retaining their short-term memories, but not their long-term. Throughout her adventures, she finds herself on Earth, where she actually finds out that maybe she is a little bit different than she thought she was at first. Maybe not just a Kree for her whole life, even though she showed up 6 years ago on the planet of Hala, where the Kree reside. Throughout a bunch of stuff, she finds that maybe some friends are foes and some foes are friends, and she really gets to find out how powerful she truly can be. Let's jump right into the highlights so I don't give away any major plot points, shall we? Captain Marvel has an excellent cast that builds out from all of these wonderful actors. Jude Law is an excellent guy. He's one of my favorite actors probably. He plays Yon-Rogg. He's one of the Kree warriors. And again, I can watch this guy just take on his own movies, which we have in the past, and he's fantastic. He's a really talented actor. Samuel Jackson is back as Nick Fury. Another standout because, it's Nick Fury, it's Samuel Jackson. He gets a lot more play in this movie than you'd see in almost any other MCU film, which is nice. And you get to see him as just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, not the actual head of S.H.I.E.L.D. So you see his kind of transition upwards, which is a lot of fun, too. Clark Gregg gets a little bit of play in this one, too, a little bit of time. Nice to see him. But truly, for me, Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Talos, the Skrull, like the main kind of bad guy, he is just excellent. I loved him in Rogue One. I really liked him in Bloodlines on Netflix. He is just wonderful. I could watch him all the time. So good. Even his specific way he speaks, there's just something about it that just grabs you, pulls you right in. Also, because it's an MCU film, there is a certain level of polish for most of the effects that go on that I really enjoyed. It's kind of what you'd expect, so there's a lot of money thrown at it, so most of it looks pretty good. Not all of it, but a lot of it looks pretty good. And, it's kind of like a classic Phase 1 Marvel film, for better or for worse. I put that in the highlights just because it seems to be working, and it's something that I don't mind seeing all the time. So that's kind of the things that really, to me, stood out for the most part. I will say this, though, too. In the very beginning of the film, there is this kind of focus on space, but on a serious level, whereas in Guardians of the Galaxy, it's kind of a joke. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Avengers Infinity War, where they take space very seriously, and I really enjoyed watching that. I enjoyed watching Vers work with the Kree soldiers and kind of have like a commando unit. It seemed like they could have done a whole movie just in space, and I kind of wish they had, honestly, because that, to me, was really cool. I was like, yes, I really, really dig this. Unfortunately, Captain Marvel has a lot of flaws. Now, I try to do my best to be as objective as possible on these things, and I'm going to try to kind of explain why, and as briefly as I can. The biggest issue I have with Captain Marvel is the same issue I was worried about with the trailers. I don't know if it's the directing, the writing, or the acting, but the actual character of Captain Marvel is so monotone throughout the whole thing, and doesn't really change at all from the beginning of the film to the end of the film. It's so hard to root for her. She's also incredibly powerful, which I love seeing. It's so cool to see this, because finally, I've always been kind of championing for this. I want to see, a very powerful female superhero in these films, besides Scarlet Witch. I'm talking about one that can, fly around, take a huge punch to the face, but also punch back and blow up warships. Exactly, that's what I want to see, and that's what I got here. However, I never really felt scared for Carol, and I never really felt worried about her as a character. I never really felt a lot of emotion. There wasn't a lot of attachment. She has a few quips here and there, but she's just so blank and it's almost stale. And I found myself not really caring about what happened to her, which is a problem because in these movies you want to really root for that hero and you want to see them change from the beginning to the end and learn something. I look back at Phase 1 films like Captain America, where you have Steve Rogers, who, comes from being this shrimpy little guy who's fighting, whatever bully gets in his way, but he'll never back down. And you give that and you put him into, the Captain America super soldier body, and he learns and he's fighting the biggest, bully in the world in World War II. I look at Tony Stark, who starts in the beginning of Iron Man, just I'm just all into myself, and he still retains that, but he learns, and he learns that he's caused problems, and he changes his ways. Captain Marvel doesn't do that. She's just the same. She just gets more powerful and she learns a little bit as far as, like, her backstory goes. And that, to me, is really boring. The rest of the film, too, there's a lot of moments where I found myself to be kind of checked out. There's just, kind of paint-by-numbers action scenes. There isn't really a lot of fun. There are moments that can be kind of fun, but for the most part, I found myself just kind of being bored, which is not good. Another thing, and there is a lot of money thrown at this movie, and like I said, some of the effects look really great. Some of it doesn't look great. There's some CGI, especially for Captain Marvel and for Goose the cat, which I've been trying to, if it was a completely subjective review, there's too much cat in this movie, but I'm taking that out of perspective. But they CGI these characters that are real characters a lot, and it doesn't look good. It looks really bad, and there's really no excuse for it anymore. I look at, the War for Planet of the Apes, and you look at Caesar, he looks incredible. I look at Pogo in Umbrella Academy, and he looks amazing too. It's just like, guys, you gotta spend a little bit more time if you're gonna like try to have the cat be like plastered against the wall for a second and be like, ah! Like you gotta do more. It looks horrible. It looks really, really bad. Yeah, and one other thing, I think they did the best they could with the Skrull makeup. It does, however, come off kind of Sci-Fi Channel. It's not that it's low budget, but there's something about it when you see it in action that seems a little off. I kind of wish they would have almost gone with like a CG Thanos route, where they really would have tried to make the texture feel less just rubbery. It feels very rubbery. Maybe that's what they were going for, but seeing them have extended conversations kind of knocks the wind out of the sails there, so to speak. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Overall, though, Captain Marvel is pretty much what you expect. It's really safe. I think that's maybe one of my biggest qualms with it as well. It could have done something really drastic and different, but it played it very, very, very straightforward. There weren't a lot of twists and turns, and I think that was very, very intentional, which is unfortunate because I think this could have been a really big, like, here we are, we're taking this really seriously moment, but I'm just worried that she won't really fit into the Avengers in a big way because she doesn't have much of a personality. And the Avengers is a team full of huge personalities, and even in this movie, she felt overshadowed by Nick Fury and by Jude Law, or I should say, Jan-Rog, and by Talos. It was just kind of like, she was there, but she was just kind of like an afterthought, which she's supposed to be the focal point in this movie, and she is, but when she's interacting with these other characters, it didn't feel right. There felt like there was some sort of disconnect. There should have been more personality to her, and I think that's what holds it back. That being said, I think it's a really pretty average movie, and that's why I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. Again, 7 for me is pretty average. It's pretty much all the stuff you'd expect, nothing more, nothing less. And, if you're a really big fan of the MCU, you've probably already seen this by now, but if you're on the fence about it, just go in with that. And I really do want to hear what everybody else thinks about this. I don't want this to just be me spewing all my ideas and opinions. I want you to comment and tweet at me and let me know. Be like, Jimmy, you were so wrong about this thing. How could you? Please let me know. I do truly value those opinions. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say about Captain Marvel for right now. If you guys want to see more about this, or you want to hear more of like an extended discussion, we're going to be talking about it on the Critical Podcast next week, which if you're watching this way in the future, maybe go back and try to find it, or somewhere. It should be there. We'll probably be in the thumbnail. But yes, please check that out, and we'll go into depth a little bit more, and maybe have Levi and or Joe talk a little bit more about it, because I want to hear what they think about this, because Levi really enjoyed it. So we'll see, though. He usually scores high and then comes down. We'll see where he is. But yeah, I don't want to speak for him. Because that's his thing. Yes. But if you want to support us, we have a Spreadshirt, we have a Patreon. If you want to share us with some friends, that'd be great too. But I appreciate you hanging out with me here today, and until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome.